Alright guys, welcome to the tour. So on this first stop, what we have here, what we're just kind of showing is our version of what we kind of think some regenerative farming is like. So we still have the advantage of the irrigation on this field, but this was planted at a dryland population, and we fertilized for a dryland population. We knew this variety was very good at double earing, so that's why you'll see a lot of double ears. I got a little away from some of these turn rows, the pollination gets better, but we did tassel right during that first 5-day heat snap that we had out here, the 100 degrees. The farther in we get, if we'd walk in, you guys are more than welcome to walk around and look when we get a chance and see some of these second ears we struggled with due to the heat that we had in here, so just wrong timing of getting them on here. But that is the characteristics of these varieties. If you come up in a little more, you can kind of see what the variety would do with the double earing on it. So with that, we looked at the economic side of this, right? So one, I want to conserve water for the aquifer so we can keep this preservation of this, because western Kansas will die without probably irrigation, right? A lot of stuff feeds off of it. A lot of communities feed off of it. I think as farmers, if you have irrigation and you're still pumping your maximum allotment just because you can, you know, you probably better start thinking a little differently, because the state is probably going to regulate this coming in the near future, probably way faster than we want to be. So we're trying to showcase some of these things to show that you can still be profitable and still conserve water and live within what would be a better realm of time. So our fertility's for this, the bushels we thought we were estimated off of this field, so we weren't shooting for 250, you know, we're shooting for 150. Our fertility's there. When we break down our numbers of how we're doing this, I need 75 bushels to break even on this. Once we figure out where our pumping costs are at the end, we'll be there. As of today, we're just a little under 8 inches of applied moisture, and that was our goal, to do this on 8 inches to 10 inches. So we'll probably end up with one more pass here. Break open an ear, my starch line, we're just right there. I think one more 3/4 inch around this would probably finish it out with test weight and everything. So we'll probably end up running one more pass here in the next few days to try to finish this corn out on that. And we'll, like I said, we'll end up being below that 10-inch goal that we're trying to set out for this. With that 10-inch goal, we did not have a ton of help from Mother Nature. You were at about 10 inches for the year still around a lot of areas. So we're not quite, you know, I didn't get the help there in the summertime that I really probably should have. To make this variety double ear like what it's doing, we applied 1.5 inches early on. Did not worry about how much goes into vegetation. Vegetation does not make me a ton of money out here, right? It's the ears. So back half through June, we had a very brutal June. June and July is where we had to start pouring the water to it to keep it alive. So, and that was our aspect. We didn't want to overwater. We wanted to water enough to just keep this live and keep this ears on in here. So how we did a lot of this too, we fertigated this with a lot of biology, a lot of molasses, sugar water, a lot of fulvic, which if anybody knows what fulvic is, some of you guys have been buying it from us. It's liquid carbon, right? You know, it's a great product because we're short on carbon on a lot of stuff, so put that. So rough idea fertility-wise, where we're setting in this is with our 32% in sulfur, we're at just under $65 an acre on our fertility. And we've put about $20 worth of fulvic, biology and different products, molasses. So every fertility pass we had was 32% sulfur, molasses. We had potassium, which is called soy sauce from Wind Biologicals. And then we ran her Wind Biologicals, which is Wind BioGold, the fulvic on that. So we had a carbon source, a sugar source, along with the fertility every pass, that the plant can utilize that right away then, versus if we would have just blown 150 pounds of urea on this up in the early spring, some of it would have been tied up. We wouldn't be able to get it plant available. So that's why we like to foliar feed on this. So yield estimates, what we did the other day out here, we're probably in that 135 to 150. I mean, we're going to be right there. As you'll see, some of the double earing that we had, we're just not super happy with it. they're just not the full double ear that we wanted. And I think our plant became superiorly, or like even this one didn't pollinate, became completely dumb. It's the first time ever growing corn that I ever seen. The tassels came, and 8 days later the silks came out. Normally it all comes out at once, right? And then these second ears, if you see them, they kind of hung out down in here. And then they just barely pushed out through a silk, and that's why you saw some of these that are half pollinated all the way at the bottom and not at the top. Kind of a weird scenario. Blame it on the heat, timing. Nobody has an answer for me why that happened. Brix levels, if some of you guys know what that is, it's the sugar content in here. Has anybody had some problems with grasshoppers this year? Just a few million, kabillion of them. So Brix level on this was running between 8.5 and 9 with the sugar we're doing. A chewing insect, anything past a Brix level of 8 doesn't have a pancreas, so they can't digest it, so they don't like to chew on it. So other than when I driving through here and I'd see thousands jumping up there, walking out in here, I did not see the grasshopper pressure that we're seeing on a lot of dryland fields and other places. So it's one thing we can attribute to things that we were looking at. Feel free, I'll give you guys, if y'all answer some questions, but not, feel free to just kind of look around and ask, you know, what our goal is and what we're trying to do with this low population corn. One thing before you look, I'll tell you one thing we did is we ran a scenario. So if we make 150 and I can hold a $3.70 cash price, you know, this will make roughly $200 and some profit per acre. By us trying to push that up to 220 bushels, we'd lose 150 bucks an acre. I cut more bushels, but I'd have to up my population. I had to do more fertility. We call it the moron problem, right? I kept putting more on to get to that point of where I was at. And so that's what we're trying to get this mindset and shift out of these guys, that you don't need 250 bushel corn to be profitable, you know. Now, the effects of this, I think, would be positive. Feedlots will hate it because it's going to starve them bushels if you look at this, you know, through the whole western half. But what do you guys think that's going to do to demand in our price, right? Instead of being low, maybe we could actually get a little bit of something for a commodity, you know? So it'd help a basis a ton. Exactly, right. So I do think this is something that I can see that can be very doable in the future out here. It's just that us as farmers are going to have a pretty big mindset not to chase the yield. Let's look at the profitability and still be able to grow something. One thing I did notice in my budget for this, I allowed another pretty high amount for herbicide control, because I thought at 15 I might have some problems with escapes of weeds. And we actually got a really nice canopy on most of this. We did a pretty good job, minus there's some shatter cane in places that's been an ongoing problem in this field. I'm actually $50 below on budget on that. So that was, you know, we allowed for it, but we didn't have to use it. So we only did one Roundup post for the shatter cane and everything else in here. So that made me feel very happy that we saved that according to the budget. So
what's your plant population?
15.5.
That's the cheap.
Which typically would be 28 to 32 out here. So depending on your wells, and obviously these guys are going less because the wells are getting less. So, but yeah, this is about 15,000 population. And we thought the problem why we struggled with a little double earring might have been sunlight issue. Some guys down farther southwest Kansas are doing this on 12.5 population on like 250 gallon irrigation wells, and they did a nice job of double earring. But I also have some skips. If you go out here and see, I run a white planter, and if anybody else that runs a white planter, you know flats are not their friend. And all my refuge corn in here is flats. You know, and again, some of these double ear varieties in here, the refuge corn might not be a double ear variety. That's out of my control, you know. So there's going to be 6% of the plants in here might not have double ear just because it's the wrong genetics. It's just a genetic that is thrown in there for the refuge in a bag. So, but yeah, so then I have some skips, but we had, you know, when you plant like this, it's a little freaky for your neighbors because, you know, you get a skip and you're going to have two, you know, we're trying to put a plant every 14 inches, you know, and so you get a skip and it's a big skip. But those plants did not double ear near as well either, where we had plenty of sunlight. So we just think as the timing of the heat kind of put that corn into not the, you know, I call it dumb mode. It just goes into a mode where it's trying to protect itself, and then it gets out of sync and goes from that. So
How many gallons you better do?
how many gallons? Total gallons?
Gallons.
Gallons per minute. So we're at, this is 500 to 550. So these wells are still holding pretty decent here. I feel great because they measure these wells every year, and only one of these wells out here has dropped through the drought or through all this years, and one has actually increased with us doing low water management type practices here and stuff like that. Even the previous owner, Larry's, is the guy that had it before we kind of got involved. I custom planned a lot of this for Larry. He was not out for yield on this either. He knew that where the means were, and you know, most time he wasn't even turning the water on before when, Larry? July 4th?
Well,
You know, in the beginning, he'd have enough residue out here that it was moist enough. He just wasn't going to turn the water on just to be turning the water on. And he wanted to make sure it was there. What we're trying to also do is make sure it's good and dry before you make the next pass, you know, because we want the soil to actually respirate and gas off. You know, we want to gas off that CO2. If you keep it wet constantly by just running half-inch passes, the soil's going to become anaerobic, right? And then the biology's going to die, everything's going to die. We actually kind of want that front tire trying to go on dry soil. And if you're a 250 gallon or 250 bushel corn guy, that really freaks you out if that soil gets dry ahead of your front tire, because you think you're going to run out by the time you come around. And where Larry's at on some of those pivots, where it's 8 days till you get back around, they probably do freak out, right? It's probably going to dry out. But we're about a 4-day turnaround for 1 inch on these pivots. So
Water. Yeah, I know. So it was corn last year.
Milo last year.
Milo last year, and then corn Milo rotate. What's your?
This will go to wheat right behind this then probably, just to try to see if we can work on the shatter cane out here on this. We have a pivot over here that we're trying the double team Milo this year for some shatter cane issues. I don't know about the double team Milo. It's very expensive per bag when you're a Milo farmer. You know, $320 a bag for Milo seems like it's like, man, maybe I should just do 86-day corn or 82-day corn. I don't know. And then I have more options with herbicide than just double team. And then the first class herbicide is very expensive to run on it.
How many inches would you have to apply for that 220 to 250 bushel?
This pivot's probably allowed 26 inches, 26 to 27 a year. I'd probably have to be pushing it. Yeah. So to me, you know, this is a good way to, you know, eliminate if you're over fertilizing, if you're around where, so like the city of Waukene pulls off these same wells, their well field is just right on the other side of this road that we came in on, you know, so if this would be running down into their well field and you start getting high nitrates, you know, they're going to come back and want to know why are you putting on, you know, 300 units of nitrogen and it's all running off of here. You're not using it. So, and most of this corn we looked at this year, we're not struggling. Like I said, we're at 116 total pounds of nitrogen applied through the pivot. So, is where we're at.
Do you feel like you have less fungal pressure because it's more open than if you were shooting at a higher
You know,
rate?
I don't know. You know, it'd probably be a good deal. I think, yes, obviously you don't have that dense canopy to try to hold all that moisture and everything in. And again, this is really a dryland variety.
Right.
It's not really, you know, meant for irrigation. I think what we'd like to do next year, so I don't have to rely on the double earring, is we're going to try another super flex ear. This ear is not typically a flex ear. I mean, it's not going to go to the 22 or 22 round and to get really long. Most of these are 16 by 50 out here. I think we'll go to like 18 or 20,000 on a super flex variety. It's still a dryland variety, but it flexes. And we'd like to try that to see if we can. Eventually my goal would be like 180 with a break even of like 80 bushels. So that's where we'd like to try to find the right variety. I thought this would be it, because normally it really double ears and Maybe I just had bad luck. I don't know. But you can see the characteristics are here for it to do what we were thinking that it would do. If it would double ear, if these would be 2 full ears like this, on here like this, I mean, it does have potential to be at 180. But I can't rely that it doesn't put that ear on. If you guys walk out a little farther, you'll find some of those ears that they're just like half of that, or they pollinate better than this, but they're just this. It's just the bottom half of them. So instead of me taking the population down this times 1.6 or 1.7 ears per row, I'm like 1.2. So this year.
What is your variety on this?
This is an LG 5528 is the variety by LG. It's had really prevalent in here is we've always had good earthworm activity in all these pivots. We're still very platy. I mean, we're obviously still using quite a little bit of chemistry and quite a little bit of fertility here, so we still have some platiness. But most time when we go out here and we dig, we always have good earthworm activity going on. But as much as you know, I'll talk about this on the next stop. When I look at this, if we have those little platiness structure in the soil, but if you grab it, it breaks apart really easy. It's still very friable, you know, in here. I think the last tillage that Larry probably had on this field was he had either a failed corn or failed soybean crop that he had to go to work because the crop we were planting in behind select would have been too long and it had too much carryover. And so the idea was just come in here with a cultivator type thing and just kill the crop that was growing because he got held out massively, and so then we had to stop that. So that probably been, and I'm going to guess that'd be like 15 plus years ago when that tillage operation was done on it.
The same soil structure up on top of the hill.
Oh God, no, there's like 9 different soil structures from here to there. You know, there's a bottom down there. We turn into what I call just the parent material, just limestone, chalky, white rock in here. There's sand over. This has plenty of sand too, and then there's patches of clay out in there too. So not a lot of clay, but there is going to be some patches of clay out in here. But yeah, like you said, you know, what we look at is you got a lot of holes where and then you got the vermicasting, you know, where they're dropping their poop down that chute, you know, which is just the great stuff. But we always like is if it can fry apart, I mean, yeah. And also you get those little layers on top. Those are carbon cycles too, you know, where you get the little mini plate, you know, and as long as they're friable, you're good, you know. But if you squeeze it and they don't break apart, that's definitely compaction that you have.